And as Joe mentioned, one industry always gearing up for hurricane season, the insurance business. 2005 brought not only the most storms we've seen in recent years, but also a record number of claims and losses. Is the industry fearing a repeat in 2008? We're joined now here in the studio by Marc Racicot. He's the president and CEO of the American Insurance Association, also, of course, the former governor of the state of Montana. Thanks very much, Governor. Appreciate the time.
Nice to be here. Thanks, Peter.
You see that forecast, you get nervous?
Well, there's no question. Every year we do. When June 1st arrives and all the way through November 30th, preparing for virtually anything that can visit itself in terms of extraordinary catastrophe weather, namely hurricanes. So this is a year that has us girded, and like every other year, the forecasts, of course, I think bring a very serious pitch to the discussions and to the focus. I know that our companies and all of their personnel, almost emergency response personnel, are ready and able and preparing to be available to policyholders all the way from Texas to Maine.
Have you all, as you all evaluate the hurricane season, and I know it's done on an individual company-by-company basis, but have you all identified vulnerabilities, states or portions of the country that might be at greater risk this year than in previous years?
Well, we depend upon the experts, the forecasters like Joe and others around the country, NOAA. All of those who are experts and have been at this a long period of time, and certainly the modelers who are independent, of course, from insurance companies when they try to assess risk, consider all of the scientific evidence that's available to them. So, yes, we pay attention to every source of verifiable scientific information that we can gather in order to paint as accurate a picture as is possible in order to bring about risk-based pricing that's reasonable and fair and passes the scrutiny of individual state regulators.
Well, let me ask you about that, because there's still ongoing controversy since Katrina about the role of insurance companies, the rates insurance companies are paying or charging in hurricane-prone states. Your assessment right now, where does that fight stand with states, for example, like Florida?
Well, when you take a look at Florida, it's a disaster in the making. Not only has it been for a while, but the legislature just recently, we think, worsened the situation by some significant degree. The fact of the matter is the future's mortgaged because they don't proceed with a protocol or with a regimen, insurance regimen that is price-based, is risk-based, and as a consequence...
You're talking about a catastrophic fund in the state of Florida.
I mean, the bottom line is we know that we can build to certain standards. Florida has put in place very diligently a building code and an enforcement mechanism for those building codes that meets very high standards. They've done a wonderful job in terms of emergency response. But when it comes to being honest about what insurance costs for people who live in dangerous areas and build homes on sandbars, they simply haven't been able to recognize the real-life costs that are associated with providing coverage. And as a consequence, it's a very, very serious problem and a disaster waiting to happen for the people of Florida. And
the reality is that there are a lot of insurance companies still choosing not to do business in places like Florida?
Well, you know, they have to remain solvent. You know, first of all, they're confined to a discrete area, namely the state of Florida, so you have to spread risk over that area. Secondly, they have to remain solvent, not just for this year, but for all of the years in the future for which they cover people, a 20-year period of time at least. They have to be able to pay all their policyholders. They have to have premiums that are approved by state regulators, and they have to provide contract language or coverage in language that is approved by regulators. So it's a pretty tough situation in terms of meeting all those requirements and making certain that you can still respond to policyholders in an honest way. So the fact of the matter is, when you cannot set a premium based upon the risk and spread that risk over an area that allows for you to remain solvent, you simply can't do business.
Let me ask you about the health of the industry heading into this hurricane season. Much has been made about the financial situation. A lot of insurance companies have been forced to post asset write-downs, like a lot of financial institutions. How healthy are your member companies?
I think our member companies are very healthy. You know, frankly, they're used to making very solid and safe investments. So they buy a lot of bonds, municipal bonds and others. In fact, they build a lot of the public infrastructure in this country because they invest in those bonds. And if you've taken a look at virtually any source, certainly there have been some write-downs as a result of the housing crisis, but they've been very small in comparison to other lenders and other parts of the financial services industry.
Let me just ask you finally, there's been a lot of talk about this notion of a federal regulator for the insurance industry. You've talked in favor of that. Secretary Paulson floated his plan. Do you think there's any action in the next Congress on that issue, or even in this Congress?
There may be in this Congress. There's some discussion about a hearing being scheduled for June or the latter part of the summer before Congress recesses to focus upon Representative Paul Kanjorski's bill that focuses upon the creation of an Office of Insurance Services within the federal government that allows for us to have some national representation, particularly when you're dealing with a lot of overseas trade issues with other nations around the planet. So I think it is an issue that is so logical. It builds its own wind, it has its own force, its own momentum, and it will carry the issue forward. And when you had some impetus provided to it by the Secretary of the Treasury, that helps it as well.
Governor Racicot, as always, appreciate the time. Thanks very much. The forecast for the insurance industry. We're back with our Friday Political Roundtable after this break.
Tune in for breaking market updates every 10 minutes only on Bloomberg Radio, 1130 AM in New York and nationwide on Sirius and XM satellite radio.
It's no secret, successful traders have discovered the many benefits of eSignal's data and software. So what's eSignal done for them?
I made $22,000 in a 5-day period with just $11,000 in capital.
Well, my first 7 trades were all winners with net returns in excess of 250%.
I've more than doubled my